of October 30th, 2019. Statement is hereby made that adequate notice of this meeting was given by posting written notice prominently on the bulletin board in the office of the Board of Education, the district's website, and sent to the 4 district schools. The mailing and hand delivery of said notice to the designated newspapers, Asbury Park Press, Independent, PLG, PSG, PSA, PTSO, SAB presidents, and student representatives to the board, and filing with the clerk of the Holmdel Township Police Headquarters and Public Library. Meetings of the board are open to the public, and all members of the community should feel free to participate. There will be 2 opportunities for the public to speak. The first is at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, and the second is at the end of the meeting for other items. Any individual desiring to speak shall give his or her name, address, and the group, if any, that is represented. The presentation shall be as brief as possible, but no more than 3 minutes per individual. There are certain matters that may be brought before the board that cannot be immediately addressed in public. Such matters may be referred by the president to a board committee and/or to superintendent for consideration and/or resolution. The board vests in its president or other presiding officer authority to terminate the remarks of any individual if she deems it in the best interest of those present to do so. May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Flynn.
Here.
Mrs. Briamonte.
Here.
Mr. Sarko.
Here.
Mrs. Liu.
Here.
Mr. Reddy.
Here.
Mrs. Ammirati.
Here.
Mrs. Collins.
Here.
Mr. Wall.
Here.
Mr. Foster.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Can you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point of the meeting, we're going to have a presentation of standardized testing. So Dr. Seeley, I assume, is, yes.
Hi, good evening. It's certainly a pleasure to be up here to share with you the successes and our next steps in addressing our students' performance. This is the most important thing that we do as a district, and is certainly a task that we all take very seriously. I'd like to begin by thanking the amazing team of administrators and teachers who lend themselves and their expertise, and they dedicate their lives to the performance of our students. A lot of work goes into the teaching and the learning all year long, and our teachers here in the district take that responsibility very seriously. And I want to applaud their efforts, and I want to say thank you so much to them for knowing your craft, for learning these standards, and for delivering them at their very best to our students to make every minute in the classroom count. That happens when they are guided by supervisors and administrators who too are committed to Holmdel's children. And we have an amazing team of supervisors that are leading this work. So we have administrators who have been here in the past and saw this past year through, and we have some new supervisors to our ranks that have demonstrated the commitment to our district that we thought takes years to cultivate, but I've learned more recently it certainly does not, as this team of administrators behind me have spent countless hours, along with Merrill Gill, in putting together today's presentation and making it meaningful. Beyond that, the rest of our administrators that sit here in the audience and those that can't be with us tonight, they are in those team meetings. They're in the grade level meetings. They're at department meetings. They're meeting with small groups of teachers. They're picking apart all of this data to ensure we know what it is our students need in order to succeed. So we utilize other assessments like the math data and some other things to help us know where to teach our children, but it is in their work and what they're leading with our teachers to affect our children where we're seeing the greatest gains. So we're going to talk today about those couple of days of snapshot data for which we do assess our students, and there's certainly a lot of value in that. But please know that for the 90 hours that it took to put this presentation together and to share it with you, there are hundreds and hundreds of hours that are going into the real work, which is picking it apart down to the standard, looking at the evidence statements, looking at all of that information so we can inform our curriculum and make a difference in the classroom with the children day to day. So thank you to all of you for all that you are doing with our kids. We really appreciate it, and I know that you're making a real difference. So with that, we'll go ahead and share with you our standardized assessment performance summary from the spring of 2019. In this presentation sequence, you will see the performance of our elementary, middle, and high school grades. We'll be looking at trends, and we'll be analyzing the performance of our larger groups full of students in ELA and in mathematics. We'll be looking at grade level cohorts, and we'll be looking at some subgroup performance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And we'll also share with you what we identified here as opportunities and next steps. So in the NJSLA, or New Jersey Student Learning Assessment Performance, we know that it is a snapshot of their summative performance over the school year. So while the day-to-day unit assessments that they're taking and the mapped out of those are more cumulative, and those are more formative, and we're looking at ways in which we can affect instruction as it's happening, we're now looking at the end of the year where our students have landed. We're looking at their achievement, and then we of course utilize this data as a component in developing our own curriculum, the sequences, and the resources in which we utilize. Those materials are assessed year to year, and even within the year when it is necessary. Our grade level performance data reports are of the general population of students, including all of the subgroups. For example, English language learners and students with disabilities. And this testing performance will compare this year's New Jersey Student Learning Assessment data with the previous year's PARCC assessment data. And it is important to keep in account that these are two different assessments, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the changes and differences between these two. So typically when we do this presentation from year to year, we are comparing essentially apples to apples. We're looking at a test over a series of years. And while the children who are sitting for any grade level test always change, we're utilizing the same assessment. In this particular case, we will not be doing that. So there's some adjustments that we make on the analysis end of this to ensure that what we're utilizing will go ahead and inform what we're doing with our kids now, and cumulatively those same standards that we have had assessed over the past 3 years. So when we look at the English language arts, there are several subcategories that we are assessing within there that you'll see on the top left side of the screen. Reading literature, reading informational, vocabulary, written expression, and written conventions. When we look at the mathematics subclaims, we are looking at major content, I can't see it, additional and supporting context, and the modeling and application and reasoning skills that our students are demonstrating. And finally, overall, we will share with you the actual performance levels. Those have not changed. That will be one of the areas for which we won't see a difference, with a level 1 of not meeting expectations, level 2 partially meeting, 3 is approaching, level 4 is meeting grade level expectations. That is where our students are expected to be at a level 4. And of course, we will have some students who have mastered and gone beyond mastery of the content and are really exceeding those expectations. So level 4 and 5 in New Jersey are students who achieve those letters are considered college and career ready. There are states that also designate level 3 as being college and career ready. It is a state decision, it is not a local decision, and here in New Jersey, we are at levels 4 and 5. I will say, this is probably a good time to celebrate. New Jersey was recently ranked #1 in the country for education. That's something we all lend to, parents as well, and something we should certainly be very proud of. So in previous years, the students took the PARCC assessment and the NJSLA assessment. It is shorter and more concise. So when you look at the period of time that the students are taking the assessments, you're essentially looking in most areas of they are spending time in the assessment that is pretty equivalent to a third of the time as they did in previous years. So while we're still assessing the standards of New Jersey, and we always have, we're spending less time in the assessment in order to accomplish that. So there's certainly benefits and drawbacks to that practice. We don't want our students fatigued by the testing, and perhaps they'll perform better when there's a shorter time frame for them to test. And there's something certainly to be said for that. But on the other end, how many questions are they getting with regard to any particular strand in order to demonstrate their proficiency of that strand in any one of our categories? So we have to balance the results of this assessment with the rest of the assessment data that we are collecting over the course of the year. And that, of course, is inclusive of our MAP data. It's inclusive of our students' performance in the classroom and the grades that they're earning from week to week and from marking period to marking period. So you will see in the grades 3 to 5 and 3 to 5, there are 75 minutes less of testing. In grades 6 through 8, 90 minutes, and also in grades 9 and 10, 90 minutes. Additionally, in this past school year, we did not assess, the state did not assess students in grade 11. So previously we did assess grade 11, it was not called for, and we did not assess them this school year. We also do have algebra and geometry. I want to underscore that those are not particularly grade level tests, as students are enrolled in those courses as they are ready for them. So some of those courses span multiple grades, and when we look at the data more closely, you'll appreciate in the areas for which we offer them and how students are performing at those various, in those courses at the various grade levels. So we look at global observations in English language literacy and mathematics. We're going to show you bar graphs that represent our students' proficiency in shades of green. You will notice that our students' performance is compared with the state performance in grades 3 through 8 in each content area for which it is relative. And we'll look at both disciplines in almost every grade level. You will notice that Holmdel outperformed the state average. Our trends in performance in both subject areas will demonstrate an increase in achievement levels in most courses at the high school level. And this is something we've worked hard toward in the past few years for our students to demonstrate the level of proficiency on the state test, as they always do when it comes to the SAT and the ACT. We have historically, as most districts in New Jersey have seen, we've seen a significant discrepancy in our students' performance in the state test as compared to the SAT or ACT assessments. This would be a good time for me to thank our high school administrators, along with our supervisors, and our parents for supporting us in having our students look at the high school assessment as one for which they need to take seriously and they want to perform their best. That is not always the perception that high school students go in with. We know it's not unique to Holmdel. It is widespread across our state because our students, along with many others, look at, well, what are the colleges looking at? The colleges are looking at SAT and ACT. And when you have over 90% of your students that are attending your colleges, that's what they're working toward. And when they're going to put their best foot forward and their efforts and dedicated in the direction that makes sense for them, they're putting the emphasis there. So thank you to all of you for helping our students to realize that we always want to put our best foot forward and we want to do our best in any assessment that will demonstrate not only their own progress, but the progress of our district. It is through that performance that we will again be able to inform our curriculum and make decisions on teaching materials that will serve them best. So we will talk about two subgroups and the meeting and the exceeding expectations for them. It's very important to note at this point that for our English language learners, or ELLs, there are end values, as there are with our students with disabilities, that are very small. And I bring that to your attention because the state and the local districts are very careful in ensuring that when we are reporting out, there's not a means for anyone to identify those small groups of students and potentially put a name with a statistic. So it is in those instances that the state's guidance for school districts is to not report out when there is what we call an N, or the number of students is less than 10 students. So in some areas, you will note that we will not report out, or we'll cluster them differently than we do for the larger grade levels, so that we're not putting ourselves and putting students in a situation where we could be identifying children potentially. Our immigrant students, our students who are new to the country and are just acquiring our language, are exempt from the English language arts assessment. It is only when they are very new, natives to our country, that they are permissible to be excluded in those numbers. So it's just important to note that a child who, in our example, we have a student who joined us in February, we did not assess them from another country on the English language arts assessment when we administered it in the spring. The aggregate performance among the different math courses is also included. Our students with disabilities, our English language learners, are a very small percentage of our population, and in the majority of our slides you will note that we are speaking of our general population and really trying to convey to you our overall performance and areas of strength and areas in need of growth. I'm going to turn it over now to Emily Wright. She is going to just share with you an alternate assessment that some of our students with disabilities will take, and then we're going to move right into our English language arts performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seeley. So my name's Emily Wright. I'm the new special ed supervisor. So before we dive into the NJSLA data, is that better?
Yes.
We'll talk about the dynamic learning maps. And this is an assessment that students who have certain disabilities take instead of the New Jersey, the NJSLA. And so this is for students grades 3 through 8 and in grade 11. And they're tested in English language arts and math, but instead of being aligned strictly to the Common Core standards, they have what are called essential questions that are more aligned to the skills that they're working on in their classrooms. And so in 11th grade, they're also tested in science. And so we use this data to, inform curricular decisions with our groups of students and provide feedback and help to make sure that we're working towards their goals and their achievement. And so again, this just serves as additional data points when we're monitoring student growth. And so again, this is a small number of students. This year, a lot of our students performed they met or exceeded their expectations. And so what we're hoping to do is for students who have excelled through the DLM, we'll be having them in certain subject areas actually participate in NJSLA. So that is a great sign. It means that we're showing improvement and that our students are really starting to, meet those standards and rise to the occasion when they're faced with those challenges. And so I will pass it over now for our NJSLA presentation to Miss Alicia Faris.
Okay, is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm not right.
Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Alicia Faris and I'm the Supervisor of Humanities and ESL here for Holmdel District. The first slide that we are looking at is the 2019 percentages for each grade level compared to the state. Holmdel students fared better than state percentages in each of the 5 scoring categories. As per state guidelines and mentioned earlier, 11th grade did not test in the spring of 2019. An upcoming slide has a graph that will provide a better visual representation of what this chart is showing. This table shows the 3-year comparison for Holmdel students versus for Holmdel students in each grade level. The current year, 2019, is in bold type, and again, there is a better visual that will represent these numbers in an easily to understand manner. When looking at this cohort view, which is examining 2016 to 2019, you can follow students as they move up in grade levels, which is shown in the areas shaded in gray. So if you look at grade 4, you can see following those students who started in grade 4 in 2017 move up through the years to grade 6. Now this slide is interesting because the up and down trend seen in all grade levels could be partially attributed to slight variations in overall enrollment for each class, as well as the randomization of actual test questions that appeared on the test. This graph is a representation of the slides that I had mentioned previously. This graph is showing Holmdel's proficiency percentages versus the state proficiency percentages over the course of 3 years. So when looking at this graph, one can obviously see Holmdel is consistently and considerably above the state averages. And while looking at the graph as well, moving from left to right, we see 2017 going up to 2019, and it is shown in lighter blue to darker blue to represent those years.
So you have 3 bars there. So left is Holmdel, middle is New Jersey, and
Right, so all the way to the left, you'll see Holmdel grade 3, and then right next to that, you'll see New Jersey grade 3.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so there's 3
Just wanna
colors
make sure.
in the bar graph, and
So
that
we looked at
represents
it differently last year.
2017
Okay.
to 2019. The next series of graphs that we are going to look at is the grade band data for 2019, followed directly after with the graph that will show the 3-year trends in those grade bands. So first up is grades 3 through 5. The proficiency levels again are represented in green, so exceeding expectations is the darkest green, met expectations is the lighter green, and then from there we have approaching expectations in yellow, partially met expectations in orange, and did not meet expectations in red. So this is grades 3, 4, and 5 for the year 2019. This graph is showing, again, grades 3, 4, and 5. However, it's now showing in the grade bands next to each other the 3-year trends. Typically with new program implementation, which we did have occur in these grade bands with the new literacy program, you can see a major drop in the first year or 2. We are expecting to see a rise in this year as teachers are going through the 2nd and 3rd years of implementation. So Village School is now in its 3rd year implementation of the literacy program, and Indian Hill is currently in their 2nd year of implementation with the Benchmark Advanced Literacy Program.
Just briefly, just to understand, so would it be accurate that 25% of grade 3 are not meeting or exceeding?
Yeah.
These slides are going very quickly. It's very hard to track the percentage. But I'm just trying to understand, are 25% of grade 3 in 2019 not meeting or exceeding?
Yes, that's correct.
And just if I can jump in, so that the public knows and the board might remember, we will post this presentation online. We do annually. It will be available for the entire year. If anybody wants to look more critically at any of the data, we certainly encourage you to do that, and then reach out to us with any follow-up questions that you might have. Just don't want you to think this is a one-time and you won't see it again. You most certainly can access it at your leisure.
But Deneen, I think it might be helpful at this point to describe the difference between approaching and having proficiency, because I'm assuming that the people who are in approaching have elements of proficiency that they have accomplished, but they haven't gone all the way. So maybe you can kind of describe those 2 bands, because I think that's kind of important.
That is true. So as I mentioned to you at the start of this presentation, we do have students who are in that level 3, and we really hone in and look and drill down for all of our students at the various standards for which they are demonstrating proficiency or approaching proficiency, or how far off they are. So in other states, while level 3 is proficient, in New Jersey it is not. We look at our level 3s of those students who just are so close and need to cross that line. So most specifically, how can we drill down into their data to help them achieve that proficiency and demonstrate it again in this snapshot proficiency assessment? At this time, we are going to try to work through the slides so that we can get to the end, and we will stay and answer any questions following the presentation that anyone has. Thank you.
And I'll just add that this is what we are currently looking at with these graphs are the overall proficiency levels, but you can break down the test for each individual child and look at, they could potentially be proficient in certain skills and standards while they might not be proficient in others. So it does get to, as Dr. Salee was just saying, drill down to very specific data for each child. What we are looking at is the overall proficiency level. I know that when Alicia Killeen gets into the math, she will talk a lot about how at different grade levels, they change the number of what the threshold is to meet exceeding expectations and so on and so on. So sometimes that also will lower or higher where the students are falling in the proficiency levels. The next grade bands we're going to be looking at are grades 6 through 8. Here we would like to highlight that grades 7 and 8 have seen increases over the last 3 years in number of students exceeding expectations, as you can see in this graph. This is the slide that represents grades 9th and 10th for last year, 2019. Something to celebrate here, and will really be seen in the next slide, is over the last 3 years, the percentage of students scoring a 1 to 3, which would be considered not proficient, has consistently decreased at the high school. Students that are exceeding and meeting expectations have steadily increased. So that is represented in this graph. Our first subpopulation that we are going to look at is the English language learners. As mentioned earlier, all English learners do take the English language arts test. The test cannot be given in their native language. However, they are permitted to have the directions in their native language, as well as a dictionary to use. Population size in each grade level is less than 10 students, which accounts for the grade level bands of 3 through 6 here, and then we put 7 through 11 just to account for the small numbers that we have being reported. There were no English learners enrolled in 8th or 10th grade last year at all. I'm now going to turn it over back to Emily Wright to discuss the data for students with disabilities.
Thank you. So here we see, can you hear me? Sorry to lower that. Here we see grades 3 through 10. Again, grade 11 was not tested, and these are the scores by grade level for students with disabilities, how they performed on NJSLA. So we don't have the grade bands pictured here, so I do want to give a little bit of insight. In grades 3 and 4, we see that we have students who performed on a level 5, which for students with disabilities is a huge accomplishment. Those are both increases from years past. And in grade 5, we do see a bit of level 3s, which is excellent, and that again, we implemented a new curriculum benchmark, and so typically with the implementation of a new program, we do tend to see a bit of a dip. In the grade bands 6 through 8, again in our 6th grade, we see students who are performing on a level 5. In grade 7, we don't have any students who are performing on a level 1, grade 7, yes, no students performing on a level 1. And again, in grade 8, this actually mimics the trend that we saw in our general ed students, and we just see an overwhelming percent of students who are meeting those expectations. In grade 9, same thing, nearly 70% of our students are approaching or meeting grade level, which is a huge feat for our students with disabilities. And in grade 10, we see, again, we have room for growth in grade 10, but it's a good percentage of students who are meeting our expectations. And so I think with that, we're going to move on to opportunities and next steps.
Overall, as we look at the district's big picture in terms of English language arts, learning of skills through standards-based instruction and data analysis is where we are currently going to be moving in order to best personalize learning so that all of our students succeed. Certain patterns patterns across grade levels have emerged in areas of both strengths and weaknesses, and we will continue to use multiple measures to track progress throughout the year. So our opportunities here at Village and Indian Hill, we're going to continue to utilize map testing and begin interim benchmark assessments, which are those in-between type of assessments, to use that data as a tool to differentiate and personalize instruction to fit students' personal needs. At the lower grades, we have teachers, literacy coaches, and interventionists that collaborate to share data, discuss trends, and plan lessons to provide additional reinforcement in areas of need, such as phonics and word work. We are planning to select, and currently are selecting, the most important standards-based grade level skills for additional reinforcement as identified by the weakest strands in the NJSLA test. So as I was just saying, there are some patterns that have emerged overall. Reading informational text has emerged as an area of increased support needed at Village, and reading literary text at Indian Hill. Reading vocabulary and written expression is a targeted area at both schools. So opportunities for multiple exposures to these skills are embedded in our literacy program, and student mastery will be tracked throughout the year. We're going to provide professional development and support on data-driven instruction and fine-tuning guided reading, differentiated workstations, multisensory instruction, whole class reading lessons, as well as targeted small group instruction. The addition of a full-day kindergarten gives us the opportunity to address and strengthen foundation literacy skills, so students will be more prepared as they enter subsequent grades. A P3 supervisor and an additional literacy coach have been added to Village School to provide instructional leadership and support to teachers by coaching and modeling effective instructional delivery, standard-based skills. The literacy coaches also work daily with our students in both a push-in, which means they go into the classrooms, and a pull-out model to give extra targeted support to students that are in need. The WIN period is also new at Village School this year, which stands for What I Need, and that is to allow for additional small group instructional time as well as independent study. During this period, students are working on targeted skills that meet their individual needs, and that means individual needs for both struggling learners and for high-achieving learners that do need and require more challenging than they're getting at other periods of the day. We're also supporting the transition this year at Indian Hill in grade 6 to literacy blocks that combine both reading and writing instruction. In years past, the literacy blocks were divided up, and you had a reading block and you had a writing block. So we are very excited and interested into seeing what data lends itself to this change. And of course, continue with student-based goal setting in grades 4 through 6, which is a really interesting and exciting thing to see, as the students are part of the process of self-identifying skills and conferencing with the teachers, using data to take ownership over their own learning. At SATS and Holmdel High School, we are working with teachers, interventionists, and other educational staff to, again, collaborate and share data, discuss trends, and plan lessons to provide additional reinforcement of areas of need. We're also providing professional development on data-driven instruction, differentiated instruction, and standards-based literacy and writing assessments, including genre-based writing in each instructional unit. Reading vocabulary and reading literary texts, as identified as the weakest strands on the NJSLA tests with last year's data at both SATS and the high school, will become a priority in lesson planning, and teachers will be encouraged to provide multiple opportunities for practice and application of these skills throughout the year. Support the implementation of the instructional units found in our revised English curriculum guides, and continue to explore revising the guides for optimum student engagement and achievement. As the years go on, we are going to be visiting at the end of every year our curriculum as a living document and tweaking what will best fit our students' needs. And then finally, continue using map data. MAP has just arrived at the high school. We had our 9th graders take map testing this year, and it provides us with a lot of valuable data, and we're also going to phase in interim benchmark assessments at these grades as additional data points to differentiate and personalize instruction to fit, again, all students' individual needs, whether that be the struggling learners or our high flyers. I want to thank everyone, and I am now going to pass it on to Alicia Colleen to talk about mathematics.
everybody. Alicia Colleen, Supervisor of Math and Science. I think I've seen most of you before. So I'm going to start off with the same high-level charts that are hard to read, but I will walk you through them and then give you graphic representation of them to help digest the content. As you just heard Ms. Faris present for the ELA, this table compares Holmdel's percentage of students in each performance level against New Jersey's performance in each tested grade or course. The data is going to be presented graphically in a minute, but before I go there, one important note is that unlike the ELA reports, once students enter 7th grade, the proficiency scores for math no longer reflect full grade, reflect the performance of entire grade levels. This year, last year, 12% of the 7th graders were enrolled in algebra, as well as 69% of the 8th grade students, which is important to note when we're looking at the numbers. The 7th grade scores account for 88% of the 7th grade students, and the 8th grade scores account for 31% of the 8th grade students. Also, the level 5 indicates the students exceed grade level expectations. You'll note that in 8th grade math, the state's average for level 5 grade 8 math students is 1.1. Ours is 0%, which is not a huge difference off the state average because it's our expectation that if the student's exceeding grade level mastery in 8th grade, they're in algebra, they're not in 8th grade math. So this chart represents the 3-year performance percentages by mastery level in each tested grade level and course. And again, we're going to give you that 3-level picture in a second to help digest the numbers.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't understand that at all. I'll be
Right,
very honest with you. If we can just explain one of them, like level 1, 1, like 17, 18, 19, 2.3, 0.9, 0.9.
Sure,
I'm
so
just trying to follow
in brief, this shows each level, so the test is given in 5, you can score in 1 of 5 proficiency levels. Level 1 does not meet expectations, 2 partially meets expectations, 3 approaches expectations, 4, which is where your cutoff for proficiency is meets expectations, 5 is exceeds expectations. This is a 3-year breakdown at each level of performance. You always want to see your lowest levels of proficiency at the level 1 and 2, moving to level 3 because you're trying to get those students that are not at proficiency levels to the approaching and then over the threshold into meeting proficiency. So, and it's a 3-year trend, so you're seeing level 1 for 2017, 18, and 19, then level 2 for 17, 18, and 19, and it goes on. The 2019 scores are the ones that are in bold. This is really hard to digest, and it looks like an eye exam, and in a second I'll break this out in colors so you can see it differently and it's easier to digest. This again is that you saw this with ELA, it's the cohort view, it's when you just take a group of students across a number of years. So in grade 3, 2017, then you see them as 4th graders in 2018, and then as 5th graders in 2019. Looking at the cohort model, we can see progress being made over the past 2 years in grades 3 through 5. We are successfully narrowing the drop in performance that students have been experiencing as they transition between 3rd and 4th grade, and the 5th grade proficiencies are now surpassing the average proficiencies for all other grade levels. As mentioned before, this year we are expanding our focus to grades 6 through 8, where our math coach and interventionists are working closely with the teachers to address the student needs in those grade levels. Again, note that the percent proficient reported in grades 7 and 8 do not represent the grade levels as a whole, and that algebra and geometry percentages represent district averages and not school averages.
So is that the explanation for why you look at 2017 and grade 6 goes from 74 to 70 to 25?
That's precisely it, right? Because the majority of those students are in algebra by that point.
Okay, and so that's the reason why we also see grade 8 go from 33 to 82 and then 58. There's this, if you look at...
So you actually can't go that way because grade 8 is only going to account for a small percentage of students. That Algebra 1 number is Algebra 1 students from SATS and the high school, so those are multiple grade levels in there. Like I said,
so this is really not a useful chart.
It's not helpful.
So we should just move past the slide.
Thank you.
But this chart's also representing level 4s and level 5s, and that's it, correct?
Correct.
So therefore, like a lot of people that take in, when you take out the algebra kids, take out the geometry kids, those numbers are already going to go down. They're already going to be at 40, 50%.
I'm so glad you're saying that. I have a great picture of it in a minute.
Right.
Okay. So this image depicts the 3-year trend for each grade level. Beginning on the left and moving to the right are grades 3 through the high school. You'll see 2 sets of 3-bar data for each grade level. And so it goes from light blue to dark blue, and then light blue to dark blue again. I'm talking about the 2 sets far to the left. That's grade 3, and then it repeats for grade 4, grade 5, grade 6. And what that is showing is 2017, 2018, and 2019 for Holmdel, and then the shorter set is the New Jersey average for the 3 years. And then the tall set is the next grade level, 3 years in Holmdel versus 3 years for the state. And so you can see the difference between the Holmdel average and the state average for the past 3 years in every grade level, and the significant difference between the two. Something to celebrate here, this is a picture of this the past year's proficiency in grades 3, 4, and 5. Something to celebrate here is our overall proficiency. In Indian Hill this year, we have a double math block for grades 4 and 5, as well as heterogeneous grouping in 5th grade. The planning, professional development, and support of our math coach, along with the collaboration and dedication of the 4th and 5th grade staff, are what we attribute to the increases that we realized. Additionally, we're now intentionally rostering students in both Village and Indian Hill schools so that it's more reasonable for teachers to be able to offer small group targeted instruction on a daily basis. It may be interesting to note that all things are not equal when looking at the level 5 or the dark green performance between the 3 grades. While in order to receive a score of meets expectation, right, that's level 4, in all grades, students have to receive a minimum score of 750. Doesn't matter what grade you're in, 750 is the threshold for proficiency. The minimum score for a level 5 or exceeds expectation, that's your dark green stuff, is not consistent. In grades 3 and 5, students scoring a 790 or better receive a level 5 designation, while in 4th grade, students need to score a 796 in order to receive a level 5 designation, right? So that's why you see more of a parallel between the grades 3 and 5 exceeds expectation, because their score to reach that threshold is the same, and in 4th grade they have to have a higher score in order to get level 5. Other comparative data shows significant differences above the state average in both proficiency and the mean scale scores, with 23, 25, and 34% proficiencies above state averages in grades 3, 4, and 5 respectively, and a mean scale score at 24, 24, and 28 points above the state average in those grades as well. We're able to see in the data that our performance is either held or increased in each of the 4 reporting areas, which are major content, supporting content, reasoning, and modeling, from last year to this year across all 3 grades, which is most noticeable, with the most noticeable gains in grade 5. This is not to say that there are not areas that we need to continue to look for improvement. We're now looking to further our improvement in our performance in supporting content standards. Those are things like geometry, measurement, and data. For each of the 3 grades, major content standards are, for the 3 through 5, are things like multiplication, division of whole number, and fractions, but supporting content is where we're looking to strengthen our performance.
So based on the data here, and obviously it's 1 year, you would be saying that the de-leveling efforts that we had in the 5th grade math has been successful. You're going from 22% to 33% exceeding proficiency.
We're very pleased with the outcome for the 5th grade students. So here's a 3-year trend, and this is kind of going to really depict what you're talking about, Mr. Sockel. If you look at grade 5 between 2017, 18, and 19, you see the significant increase. So while proficiency graphs are helpful, there's always things that the graphs don't adequately highlight or why they don't show at all. Some of these highlights include that in grade 3 and 4 and 5, they all saw overall decrease in level 1, level 2, and level 3 categories across the board. And that's where we're talking about, trying to move those students that are not meeting proficient levels or approaching expectations into those proficiency ranges, focusing on what proficiency skills they do have and then what they have to expand on in order to maintain, to meet the proficiencies. So looking at the 6th through 8th grade band, there are a few important considerations to point out. The grade 6 proficiency graph represents the score of 258 students. All 6th grade students take the same state assessment, whether they're in Math 6 or enrichment math as a 6th grader. In 7th grade, students enrolled in 7th grade math or 7th grade honors math take the grade 7 assessment. And these 230 students, or 88% of the grade, are represented in the first graph. The remaining 12% of 7th graders are enrolled in 7th grade honors algebra, and as such, they sit for the algebra assessment. Their scores are represented in the SATs and district algebra reports. In grade 8, only the students enrolled in Math 8 are represented by the grade 8 math score. This is 79 students, or 31% of our 8th grade student population. The remaining 69% of students are either enrolled in algebra, honors algebra, or honors geometry, and take those assessments instead. Because we've had such high participation in grades 7 and 8 in both algebra and geometry this year, we are including overall proficiency graphs as a comparison to help illustrate the performance of the grade level as a whole. Especially in the graph for grade 8, you can see what a contrast there is between the grade 8 proficiency and the proficiency of the entire 8th grade, where the scores of the algebra and geometry students are factored in. So hopefully this helps you get a better understanding of the grade level as a whole. Also of note is the difference in scores required for level 5 performance from grade 6 to 8. Level 5 attainment occurs with a score of 788 or better in grade 6, 786 or better in grade 7, and an 801 or better for grade 8. For algebra, a score of 805 is necessary, and in geometry, you need a 783. The algebra and geometry scores are the same for the high school reports as well. Having said this, last year's 6th graders realized a very slight increase in proficiency above the state average and a 17-point difference above the state in mean scale scores. In grade 7, students also extended their proficiency percentage above the state average, moving from a difference of 27.1% to 28.7%. In grade 8, we had a decline in Math 8 placement of students from 38% of our students to 31% of our students in favor of Algebra 1, which increased enrollment from 46 to 53% of 8th graders. The remaining 15% of 8th graders enrolled in honors geometry. The higher percentage of students enrolling in Algebra 1 may account for some of the performance dip that we experienced from last year to this in both Math 8 and Algebra 1. However, despite this, it's worth noting that the mean scale score of the Math 8 students still exceeds the mean scale score of the state last year. After the significant work that took place last year in grades 4 and 5 math, we're now extending our focus in grades 6 through 8. Specifically in these grades, our subtopic analysis illustrates a need for further attention to supporting content topics covered in all 3 grades, like statistics and probability and geometry, and an additional need for assessing and working to improve the modeling skills of our 8th grade students. Modeling is a skill that crosses all content, major, and supporting, so we anticipate that would produce gains across the board as a result of that focus. Much of what's illustrated here was previously discussed within the grade level reports. This is the 3-year trend for grades 6, 7, and 8. This does not have entire grade levels represented in the grade 8 or grade 7 numbers. It's clear to see here why it's important for us to focus, for our focus to extend to 6 through 8 this year. Like I said before, we've identified areas where we'll be looking to evaluate and strengthen our students' mastery of standards, specifically in supporting content and modeling. We've already increased our math coach supports in these grades, and the teachers are using MAP and NJSLA data to help plan instruction and anticipate areas of need for additional focus this year. High school proficiencies are reported as courses and not grade levels. Any 9th or 10th grader enrolled in either Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2 are included in these percentages. As mentioned earlier, as per the state, 11th grade students were not tested even if they were enrolled in one of these courses. All 3 of these courses saw student percentages outperforming state proficiency averages. This is particularly impressive when considering that the students that are enrolled in Algebra 1 are typically enrolled in Math 8 the year before. Based off of subtopic data, we will be evaluating the development of modeling skills in both Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 courses and the development of reasoning standards in geometry.
Alicia, if you take that last bar, grade 9, is it safe to say that that's almost a combination of the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, almost like a graded, looking at the whole grade as itself, or no?
I wouldn't say that, only because the geometry and Algebra 2 have so many 10th graders in them.
Right, you do have a smatter, okay.
Yeah. And when you look at the grade 10, like as a quick, we tried, it was such, it didn't fairly represent grades. It was such a, because you have so many students in Algebra 2 as 10th, if you try, they move beyond Algebra 2 for a little.
Right.
In grade 10, if they come in as geometry students, so you're losing such a big population that wasn't a fair look at the grade level either. The 9th grade was the closest I could give you to a whole grade view.
Right.
Can you translate bar 1 a little bit more, Algebra 1 high school?
That's any student that's enrolled in Algebra 1 for the high school. Those are the students that the year before were enrolled in Math 8. It's just Those students are beginning in Algebra 1, progressing to geometry as sophomores, Algebra 2 as juniors, have usually pre-calculus as seniors. The proficiency level there is just below 50%, which is, like I said, they were still, their scale scores were still above the state averages, which was really impressive because those are the students that we typically see as our most struggling students. We have the algebra lab to support them. Some of them take double periods of algebra, and I'm really proud of our algebra program in the high school. Our teachers are excellent, and we've been asked by other schools to come visit and take a look at what we're doing there because of the good work that's happening. So while that image perhaps raises an eyebrow, the students that we're servicing there and the gains that we're seeing in student proficiency from where they were to where they get by the end of the year are actually pretty impressive.
Just a general question, do we have any comparisons with our own cohort as opposed to state averages, our own cohort, Chatham, Princeton, other groups that are similar,
so
either
the
with
state
demographics or socioeconomic?
Yeah, the state used to produce that. They don't now.
Okay.
You actually have to go and check other people's presentations when they post them just to compare. So I'm just going to move on. The next is the 3-year comparison of the algebra. Due to the trends we see in the high school math courses, the use of map testing has been extended to include geometry this year, and we'll be closely monitoring the use of that to evaluate and extend the extent to which it informs and impacts instruction. This year, the math lab course continued to enhance and support the math instruction for algebra and geometry, and we've introduced an Algebra 2 lab course this year as well. These are the graphs of the overall district proficiency in each of the courses. This is any 7th through 10th grade student who are enrolled in any of these courses. I'm going to bring Emily back.
Hi, I'm back, preparing to report on our grade 3 through 11 math scores for students with disabilities. In grade 3, we saw a beautiful upward trend. So we have students who are performing, again, nearly 50% who are at level 4 and level 5 in their performances. Grades 4 through 6, over the past 3 years, we've seen a great increase in the number of students who are performing on levels 4 and 5. And we think that's largely due to the increased amount of math time that students have at Indian Hill. With that double period, they've been able to supplement skills and really hone in on the skills in areas where students need support. Grades 7 through 8, again, we see a significant amount of our students with disabilities performing at level 4. There is a bit of a percentage who are, still need support and are on level 1 and 2. So what we're looking to do this year is focus in on different ancillary supports and programs to supplement the general ed curriculum so that are standards-based, that our students who are performing perhaps below grade level, we can still support them with the appropriate standards. Grade 9, we see a large percentage of students starting to achieve at level 4. We've implemented an algebra ICR lab, so it's an additional period throughout the day where students with and without disabilities who need that extra algebra support have that extra time built into the day to focus on the skills and areas where they need that support. So we're hoping that with the implementation of that class, we start to see the increase in scores in algebra. We only had one student test on the 10th grade level who took geometry, so of course we won't report on that to make sure that that student's not identifiable. But we have seen similar trends that the gen ed has seen and similar increases that the gen ed population has seen for our testing. So we're proud of our students for rising to the occasion. So with that,
This is just a report of the 25 ELL students that are enrolled in the district last year. Because of the small numbers of students in each grade level, it's necessary to present banded grade level data for their performance. So you just see the grade 3 through 5, 6 through 8, algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. So the discussion points for our opportunities and next steps. First, at Village and Indian Hill and math, you'll see there's a lot of similar approaches to the ELA information that the other Alicia presented a minute ago, or maybe 15 minutes ago. So we're going to focus on our PD on standards-based instruction and student goal-setting strategies. These were used in Indian Hill in the past year, and we're expanding that because we had such positive results off of that. We are developing and implementing interim benchmark assessments to track continual progress of student mastery. of the major skills and identified content standards. That's why I said we looked at the reports to see where our areas for the most improvement lie. So they were going to support the teachers in their efforts to differentiate through the use of workstations and small group instructions, helping them develop those activities that are standards-based and will target individual skills. It will be done specifically in the weakest strands that we identified through our data reports. Training and utilization of standards-based materials for teachers of special education students who use modified curriculum will be taking place. The addition of Ms. Fittipaldi this year as the new P3 supervisor has already been a welcome support, and she serves an additional instructional leader in Village School. Back there. And the addition of the WIN period at Village School is going to be very helpful to us to provide differentiated instruction through small group work and independent practice to strengthen math skills in targeted areas for our youngest learners.
Alicia, can you guys go over what the WIN thing is in Village? Is that for every student? Is that once a week, every day? Is it, are they missing the same class every day, or is it, just?
So I'm going to let Dr. Seeley speak about it, but.
Okay. No, fine. I don't care who answers it.
So when we looked at the schedule overall at Village School, we assessed where are we spending our time, and if we're looking to differentiate and meet the needs of kids, we had to review what we were doing and make adjustments. There's only so much time in the school day, so what courses are we instructing during those times? Previously, we had 3 solely identified periods for literacy, 1 for math, and then we shared a science and social studies period along with a related arts period and then their lunch. We decided this year that rather than identify 3 unique, strictly literacy only, we moved to 2 periods of literacy like we do at Indian Hill, and which is typically practiced in elementary school, and then the 1 period of the WIN, or what I need. During that WIN period, we have all of our interventionists available, as well as other supporting personnel that can push in or pull out students as they need to be. Furthermore, for students who need additional special education services or related services, we can pull them out during that time specifically whenever possible, so they're not missing any general education or any new instruction that is happening, and thus we're maximizing what they're learning with particular regard to the standards. So no longer might you miss a math period or a science or a social studies. We're able to pull them out of WIN, where we're meeting with small groups anyway and giving everybody what they need.
Or PE or whatever.
Yes, so
other
again,
classes.
we try not to even pull out of the related arts anymore. So
Right.
as much as we can avoid that, we want our kids to have that comprehensive experience. It's not to say that it is fail-proof. There are situations where we have children who have multiple singleton classes, if you will, or related services, and at times those do impede on that, but we've significantly decreased the amount that we're needing to pull kids from direct instruction. We want them to be there in the classroom learning from their teachers. That's why they're a member of that class.
So 6 weeks in, happy?
Very much so. I think it's still a little early to tell. We are all adjusting to this, especially the teachers, and I want to compliment them for working through this. It's different, and they've been doing what they've known for years, so it's an adjustment. And most recently, we met with a grade level of teachers just this week to get some feedback from them on how are they doing and what do they need, and we're ready to support them. So we're talking with them and trying to work with them in supporting it. And I just want to say, we have a lot of our directors and our supervisors that are facilitating those small group conversations to make sure the teachers feel supported, know that they are supported, their voices matter, and we want to make adjustments as they see we need to. Much like we did when we implemented the double period of mathematics in grades 4 and 5, we needed to provide professional development, we needed to use data to drive where we were going, and we're trying to do the same now with this WIN period. Thank you.
I'm just move on to So I'll just start talking about SATs in the high school then. The areas that we're looking to work on this year at SATs in the high school are more focused on standards-based instruction and assessment with 7th and 8th grade at SATs, Here again, we're developing and implementing benchmark assessments to help track student progress towards mastery of the major skill and content standards, and those would be taking place in between, during their regular units of study. We're going to continue professional development on data-driven instruction. Teachers are working so hard analyzing their MAP scores and the NJSLA data, focusing on the major content clusters and standards so that they can see growth in their student progress across the year. Also, the co-teaching model is so important in terms of being able to maximize instructional time for the students, and that's going to be an ongoing focus for us at SATS as well. In the high school, supporting the teachers in their use of the MAP data and the standardized testing data to track the student progress and planned for their standards-based instruction. The MAP testing is expanding into geometry this year, so that's something, a new data source that the teachers will have at their fingertips. And then we are collaborating with teachers to evaluate the way that modeling and reasoning standards are being incorporated in our algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 courses. So with that, I'm going to bring Dr. Celia back up.
So thank you again to the supervisory team for putting together a very comprehensive summary of our standardized assessment performance. It's important for the board and the public to realize that we are certainly never satisfied and rest on our laurels to say, hey, we're doing pretty good and we're above the state average. That's never good enough for us. And we expect more just as you do. So while we've made significant increases and strides, we are ever growing our craft and committed to making a difference for these students at every level of proficiency to grow them from where they are to the next level or levels. We are in the midst of what we call a sea change at this point in terms of how we analyze data and how we are making appropriate instructional decisions and in delivery and implementation in order to make change. We are certainly utilizing this data, and we will see over the years the increased use of data as we are now by all the members of our school community. We continue to increase our capacity for doing this and analyzing and effectively using the data, and we are committed to our students' achievement. Our data analysis is ongoing, and we continue to analyze this data throughout the course of the year. So while this is certainly a snapshot of our summary data, it is this in conjunction with the other components of data that we are using in order to see change. We do certainly not only look at our own district data, but we do look at the data from our peer districts. Previously, the state did provide that data to us as summary. We have not received anything from the state as of yet, nor did we at this time last year. What we did was took it upon ourselves to investigate the presentations of peer districts and their data so that we could compare our performance with how peer districts were doing. We also reached out in some situations to find out what are the resources that they're utilizing. How are they supplementing the instruction? Are they using resources that are similar to ours, or is there something that they're finding to be more successful with a similar population? So we are very committed to ensuring that we will maximize our resources in order to meet the needs of every individual student here in Holmdel, and we appreciate the support of the Board of Education, specifically the Curriculum and Instruction and Special Services Committee. You really hold us to task, and you certainly support the various programs during our pilots and during their implementation, and your commitment to all of Holmdel students is deeply appreciated. Likewise to our parents, we know how hard you work with your students at home and the support that you give to them and to the teachers who are teaching them, so we too thank you. So once again, for our teachers and our administrative staff, we will continue to use this data in conjunction with so many other components to maximize our students' achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Seeley, and thank you everyone for all the hard work and the responsiveness that you were able to provide to the questions asked by the Curriculum and Instruction Committee to provide this presentation. And as you said, Dr. Seeley, this will be shared with the community, I'm assuming tomorrow. Dr. McGarry.
So I will post it on the district website, and it will be available for the entire year for anyone to reference at any point. Once we do have some peer district data, we'll also include that so that we can just share out some of that information. It's important for us all to appreciate. Again, we're very proud of where we are, but we've always got more work to do, and we take that very seriously.
And I appreciate you tying a lot of your presentation to some of the initiatives that have been recommended to the district and to the board over the past few years. So thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Sockel.
So Deneen, I got a comment, a concern, and a question.
Okay.
The comment is that I appreciate that you guys are reaching out to other districts. I think we have an obligation based on the growing curiosity within this community of how this district ranks against other districts that are similar to us, basically what used to be described as the I schools that we used to use as a designation, social economic, and earlier in this decade, you always had three columns. You had our numbers, we had the state numbers, and we had those numbers. And those numbers really provide a great measuring tool. So I personally feel that I would really like to see your team go that one step, take the data and give us a presentation in a couple of months, if that's how long it takes, to show us how our numbers compare to other schools that fall into the I quadrant. Because I think the community wants to see that. I think the community is very, very curious about how we rank with other districts. My concern involves slide number 31. We've got 31% of our 8th grade math students in which it appeared to me that 80% of them are not proficient. And those people are going to be in a real problem in trying to catch up when high school kicks in for math. And yeah, if you could just put up slide 31. You'll see that you've got from what I'm seeing here, if I'm looking at these numbers, I mean, you might have more accurate numbers, but it looks like you got about 20 to 25% of your students are proficient, but a large chunk, either 75 or 80%, are not there. And all I'm basically saying is those kids are starting at a huge disadvantage when it gets much more competitive in high school. So I think that whatever remedial strategies we have here to get those kids so that when they get into high school, we don't see them spiral even worse as the math gets more challenging, I think we need to address that. The question...
And you said the 31% was 79 students, basically? Just want to make sure.
Yeah, but it's still, it's almost
no, it's absolutely.
It's almost one third of your grade. So I mean, it's a chunk, even if it's only the member you said here. It's a lot.
Mr. Sokol, to respond to that, I think that's a very fair point, and it is one that we spoke more deeply through in our Curriculum Instruction and Special Services Committee, most specifically to providing additional support as we do at the elementary schools via a math coach.
Okay.
And we are recognizing, and we will make that recommendation in the budgeting process. We did share that with C&I, that we feel there is a need for a math coach to support the instruction that's happening, especially as differentiated as it is with the various courses for which we're offering. We've got 4 levels of math just in the 8th grade alone. We need to provide support to those teachers in the delivery of all that to meet the needs of the kids.
There's going to be a point in time, though, where we're going to have to consolidate this. I mean, we're seeing kids able to adapt to more higher level math than they had 10 years before. To simplify the system, we're going to have to find a way to consolidate. The question I have for you regards grading. And I remember a couple of months ago, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was a very high percentage of our students are getting B's or above. I think it was something in the close to 80%. If you take that as a measuring stick, it does not align with the numbers we saw here, okay? I think we need, my question really is, do we need to start to look at our assessment strategy when it comes to grading of our students so that we are effectively identifying through the grading that some of these kids are not hitting proficiency? Because you can't have 83%, I think it was like that. I think that's the number 6 in my head. You can't have 83% of your students getting B's or above and have the numbers you just showed. Because there are too many kids who are falling into the approaching proficiency rather than proficiency. So I think that's, my question to you is how do you address the grading strategy so that it aligns as a response to these numbers?
And your point is well taken, and one for which we really started to bring to light last year as we analyzed triangulating that grade level and math performance and standardized assessment performance. When we're looking at students' grades cumulatively over the marking period and then over the course of the year, they encompass not only the assessment of standards as you typically might see in a unit assessment or something of that nature, they also encompass homework, class participation, any projects that might be engaged upon. So those grades are not just assessment of particular standards. There's other things that are included in those. And to your point, sometimes those other supporting endeavors of our students, and sometimes, hopefully always meaningful, but they are not just standards assessment. They will drive up at certain times students' grades. We want to acknowledge our students' completion of their homework assignments. We want to acknowledge their participation in their classwork and in projects and other things, but the percentage of that sometimes clouds what these standard-based assessment unit assessments.
Well, I think cloud's a good word here, Janine, because that's my concern. My concern is we do not want to be creating grading systems that are not aligned with what the testing scores are showing us, which is to suggest that maybe if students were getting C's, this would help give them a heads up or an alert that there's more they have to do to get to proficiency.
It's an interesting point that you bring up, and I'll only say to you in response to that, we're really fortunate in our district and so many others now that we have our student management system. So through that system, our parents can very well go in every day and they can view the accuracy and the performance for which their child is experiencing in their class. So they can see and they can tease apart the various types of assessment criteria that's included in the portal. So if you average just the unit assessments, it might more clearly mirror what we're seeing in the standardized testing performance. That being said, in a district like Holmdel and in so many other places, our parents want to see their total achievement of their children. And our parents expect that their children are earning A's and B's in a district like this. And they do that when they are assessed holistically, not only on just paper and pencil, but in the other endeavors that they're utilizing in order to achieve the standards. So it's a tough line that we walk, all of us, in marrying the two. And we certainly don't want to only demonstrate for our students through their grades just paper and pencil assessments. There's got to be more to teaching and learning than that. But again, your point is well taken in that if it's clouding it and it's clouding it too much and we've swung too far, then it's not a fair representation, and it might not be fairly representative of overall achievement in the course for which they're in.
And Mike, during the course of that C&I meeting, the C&I committee did discuss this idea, as Dr. Seeley alluded to, of additional supports in these grade levels. For instance, it's been reported to us the successes that we are having with the algebra lab, and Dr. Seeley and her staff talked about whether, providing those type of supports at the lower level, 7th and 8th grade. We talked about learning coaches. We even went so far without Mike Petrizzo in the room saying something like, if you need someone now, get them. Mike will find the money. So whatever.
And to your point, we want to look to, should we build upon some of the programs where we're seeing greater successes in the double period and those kinds of endeavors at the middle school? And again, like we talked about at Village, there's always something you're going to give, but our student achievement is paramount. And again, to your point, if we're looking at, in particular, certain grade levels and certain disciplines, and if we can provide additional support, whether it's via a WIN or a double period, we can look to do that. And again, having that additional support of content experts to support our teachers is always going to be worthwhile.
And Dr. Seeley, would we be able to get information in a future meeting about the Achieve program, how that's helping the students in that 7th and 8th grade levels too?
Sure, Ms. Rubel would love to share that information.
Yeah, sorry.
Are there any other questions?
Any other questions?
Just have a brief comment. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I realize it went fast, so we'll just have to follow up on it at a later time. The one item I wanted to share is the coaching. I think is excellent of providing the coaching for the educators. I think that overlaying the other districts, the cohorts within our own cohort, as it were, would be great to have that in a format at some point, because that's frankly what most parents are interested in. They're interested in the numbers, but they're also interested in the numbers compared to districts like Holmdel, because that's part of the reason they came to Holmdel, is for that, not so much chasing the average. I'm not saying we chase the averages, but they're looking at other communities where they want to raise their children in the educational system they want to be in. So they want to see what other districts are doing. And the last comment I wanted to make is that just as much as you look at how the successful data, the numbers that are really working, exceeding expectations, and trying to pull apart why is that so successful, why is that working great, which educators are really helping that excel and nurturing that and supporting that. I would just reiterate in a different way that I did last year, is to feel very comfortable, for the teachers to feel really comfortable sharing with the folks in the chain of command areas where they don't feel as strong, and to not be shy about it. Because as a board member, I fully support them sharing with the folks that they work with, this is an area that I really need help with, because I want to, but not be shy about it within the infrastructure here, and to embrace anything that would help them do the work that they need to do, and not feel that they can't ask for that, and not feel that there's not funding for that, and that we won't make sure that those resources are available. So at least for myself, I want to share that any educator, any teacher in the district should feel extremely comfortable saying, I need help in this area so I can do a better job, and not refrain from that. I think that's extremely important. So
Our budget certainly supports that. We take a really comprehensive look at where we're dedicating our instructional money and any supporting funds, so that our teachers are first and foremost, because they are in the trenches with our students. So our teachers, we have a large budget for our teachers to attend outside professional development endeavors. We also host in-district professional development throughout the school year. We have our identified in-service days. Last year, we even did before and after school workshops monthly in order to accommodate our teachers. We have an LPDC committee, a local professional development committee. They are the representatives of their own schools. They hear from their peers in their schools. They bring to these school committees, and then those school committees to the larger district committee, any support that they might need for any of these professional development areas that they feel like they need some additional support. We do conduct a survey annually of our teachers so they can provide specific feedback, not only within the disciplines, but even drill down even further of the professional development that they want us to focus on for the upcoming school year. So when we're planning for the October and the January or February day, and then any other local professional development that's happening in the schools, it's with direct input from our staff members that provide that to us. So we've got a real special working system within our school district that we want to hear directly from the teachers of what they need, and then supporting that. Our supervisors, our building administrators, our principals, our vice principals, they're meeting with our staff members every month in some capacity to hear directly from them. And the nice part is, it's in so many of those small group meetings that teachers will very openly share what it is that they need, or through a survey, and we're more than happy to provide it for them. So we're consistently and constantly reassessing where we are, what the needs are, and then providing the professional development. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago.
I would just add to that too, that our teachers are not bashful. And I think we, from my office right on down, we pride ourselves in approachability. And you know, as a superintendent, it's not uncommon for teachers to come up to me and tell me something that makes them uncomfortable, or that they need more support in. And that's the kind of district that we have built and are trying to sustain. So teachers are very comfortable sharing with anyone what their needs are. And we really truly listen to that and respond. So.
As recently as today, Mrs. Gill and I met. She'll vouch. Mrs. Gill, you were there, and Ms. Wright. We met in response to a teacher meeting that we held yesterday to say they told us they need PD in this, and we're right now formulating that, and we selected a date for which we're going to provide it. We want to respond to them as quickly as possible, and we welcome their feedback. No one's an expert in everything, so let's provide the professional development and the support where people need it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the support of the board and all that you're doing for us.
My goal is simply to provide a plain English board level support for educators to continue the outreach that you're indicating that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you everyone for your presentation this
Thank you.
evening. I appreciate it. At this point in the meeting, we go to the report of the student representatives.
Hi everyone. So this week has been extremely stressful for the seniors with our first major due date coming up this Friday. However, the great help from teachers and guidance counselors have made the process a little less painful, so a huge thank you to them. And our National Honor Society had its first meeting with current and eligible members and are hopefully starting tutoring services soon. Our peer leaders have had their meetings with SAT students and high school freshmen to help them in their high school and their school and social lives. And lastly, we want to congratulate our new National Art Honor Society students, Amber Myers, Paul Da Silva, Jess Lakowski, Goen Wang, Rebecca Liu, Carolyn Jiang, Robert Carducci, Cynthia Zhang, Janine Algamal, Rasha Lababidi, Audrey Su, Dagny Fatma, Sydney Goldson, Megan Yu, and Alice Shagalova. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Before the superintendent report, can I see a show of hands for the student representative report? Hannah, before the superintendent starts, if you want to go now or sneak out, you can. Oh, you might mention her. Never mind. Sorry. I don't get a preview of the superintendent.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to begin my report tonight by mentioning two of the many recognitions found on our calendars in October, and no, it's not Halloween. The first is, and it's also not the World Series, which I guess is taking place at the moment. The first is National Bullying Prevention Month, which in New Jersey schools includes the Week of Respect. It was wonderful to observe the various creative ways that our schools chose to recognize this week, this year. Kudos to our anti-bullying specialists for their efforts to lead these activities, and thanks to our families, in particular of our younger ones, for keeping up with the wardrobe demands for the week. Every day was a different type of outfit that students had to wear, and so it can be quite demanding, I'm sure. In addition to student activities and lessons, we also spent a great deal of time this month invested in professional development and other discussions of topics related to bullying prevention, including social and emotional learning, character development, student mental health, bias, and cultural competence. I've been very impressed with the commitment of staff, students, parents, and board members to these topics, and to our growth as a district as it relates to these. Thank you to everyone involved thus far. October is also National Principals Month, which recognizes the essential role that principals play in making our schools great. Principals and assistant principals are often unsung heroes. So tonight I want to take a moment to publicly recognize this month and to thank our 4 principals, Art Howard, Lisa Vitale, Bill Lochran, and Brian Scalacci, and our 5 assistant principals, Jessica Vierscheling, Mike Ferraris, Chantal Simonelli, Jamie Brown, and Jennifer Riggi for their leadership of our schools and the care that they provide our students and staff. I think a couple of them are here. Would you stand up and be recognized? Every day, our schools are filled with exciting and engaging activities, so as you might imagine, it's hard to capture all of that, all that happens in a month's time in my report, but here are a few highlights of good news from across the district. Indian Hill's Helping Hornet program continues to thrive as school counselor Mrs. Jennings has been collecting countless names of students for performing acts of kindness throughout the school. Indian Hill students are also busy practicing for their fall play, which is called The Enchanted Bookshelf. It'll be performed on Thursday, November 14th, and we're all really excited to see the students perform in a little more than just 2 weeks. Speaking of performances, congratulations to all the students who performed in the SATS talent show last week, always a highlight of the fall performance season. I would like to congratulate Indian Hill's Hornets of the Month for October, including 4th graders Ryan Buchan and Sebastian Postigo, 5th graders Rocio Pastor and Abdullah Atia, and 6th graders Maya Varma and Joseph Seda Ducate. Similarly, I'd like to recognize SAT School's Students of the Season, Tiana Mickens, Alex Pellicone, Jack Powers, and Michelle Steele. While I already congratulated her via my social media channels, I'd like to again congratulate SAT students Annika Aljam Kar, whose poem Glasses earned a second-place prize in her division in a poetry contest sponsored by the American Library of Poetry. I hope to invite Annika to a future meeting to read her poem Glasses and be recognized by the board. Congratulations and thanks to all of this quarter's music technology students from SATS who have initiated a catalog of wonderful mindful musical meditations that are being listened to in classrooms across the district. As you know, we have been engaged in the study of mindfulness for the last 2 years, and to see this work impact our students in ways that were really unimagined at the time that we started it is what I think Innovate to Elevate truly means. I honestly think we could market the students' collection of work, including one I think by Mrs. Collins' daughter that I listened to one day. Speaking of elevating, the National Merit Scholarship Corporation has announced its 2020 semifinalists and commended students in the 65th annual program. And as usual, Holmdel High School students are included among them. In fact, we see more of them every year, which is something that data doesn't tell you, right? We would like to congratulate our 19 Holmdel High School National Merit Commended Scholars and 4 semifinalists. Our commended scholars include Rohan Ahmad, Nicholas Bauman, Sophie Burke, Jeremy Bodycomb, Derek Chan, Yu Chung, Elliot Gunawardana, Joseph Helbach, Carolyn Jang, Rebecca Liu, Jeffrey Luck, Annika Patel, Musa Sheikh, Daniel Schnittkind, Tom Swee, Sophia Taverna, and Owen Waller, Daniel Wang, and Justin Zhang, and our Holmdel High School National Merit semifinalists, Emily Livonis, our own Hannah Lin, Daniel Yuan, and Claudia Zhang. So how about a round of applause for those? Switching gears, I understand that congratulations are in order for the Village PSA, as Ladies' Night Out was once a great success. Special acknowledgement go to the hardworking PSA board and to Danielle Longyear and Danielle Pavaramo for leading the fundraising team. Congratulations also goes to the PSA and all the families that stepped up and decorated their trunks for this weekend's trunk or treat. Thank goodness for the weather, which doesn't look so great for tomorrow. Great job to Rebecca Kaplan and Gabriella Petinato for running another spectacular event. The students here at Indian Hill wanted me to give a huge thank you to the PLG for facilitating 3 very successful hangout nights for our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade students. The students all had a great time, and everyone was thankful for the parent volunteers who helped chaperone the events. SAT students are thrilled with the return of the Snack Shack, and I'm sure some of the teachers are as well. Thank you to the SATS PSG for their continued support for our students, including the return of the Snack Shack. Thank you to the high school PTSO for hosting Demystifying College Night again this year. The slideshow and open forum discussion allowed parents to discuss the college prep process and gave recent college experience parents the opportunity to share helpful hints to other parents just beginning to look at the process for their children. Thank you to all the parents who attended our very first Special Education Parent Advisory Committee meeting this month. Parents had an opportunity to meet our new Supervisor of Special Education, Emily Wright, who you met tonight, who just joined us last month. CPAC provides a great way for parents and staff to collaborate, and we look forward to our students continuing to benefit from this partnership with families. Thank you to Mr. Sean Dowd and the members of the HTEA for another successful blood drive. Special thanks to all the staff and students who donated to such an important cause. Thanks to all of the teachers and administrators who presented workshops for staff members at the Professional Development Day held earlier this month. Student achievement topics included analyzing data to differentiate and plan instruction, technology tips, multisensory instruction, effective co-teaching, response to intervention, concept mapping, and using social media to promote learning. Student and staff wellness topics included social emotional learning and mindfulness practices, as well as anxiety, vaping, and CPR. It was an enriching day for all, and we're looking forward to our next PD day in January. Finally, I wanted to follow up on 2 matters discussed during our last meeting. The first relates to concerns expressed about non-public transportation and the limits placed on us by state statute. I am proud of this board's efforts to address this on behalf of the families with children attending non-public schools. On the agenda tonight is a motion that will hopefully encourage the New Jersey legislature to hold hearings and to consider amendments to the non-public pupil transportation statutes to meet the concerns of parents of non-public school students, not only in Holmdel, but across the state. And the second matter is in response to the issue of pep band. Based on the board's direction and feedback from students, parents, and staff, a committee was formed to evaluate the current requirements of the band classes and to make a recommendation to me that included feedback from all constituents. Dr. Seeley met with all of the students in the classes yesterday to review sort of the suggested changes, and she's available tonight to talk about those if the board has any questions or wants to hear from her at this time or at some later time. But she presented those same recommendations and my recommendation to CNI and Special Services earlier this month and our plan for moving forward. In closing, I wish everyone participating a safe Halloween and a successful close, believe it or not, to the first marking period of the year. I do have an enrollment report to share with you. At Village School, we have 779 students. Indian Hill, 747, Sat School, 529, and Holmdel High School, 939, for a grand total of 2,994 students. I also have an HIB report to share with the board. At the high school, we had one case of HIB reported, and it was found to be substantiated. At William R. Sat School, we had one case reported, and it too was found to be substantiated. And at Indian Hill School, we had 2 cases that were investigated and found to be unsubstantiated, with Village School having 0 cases reported.
Thank you so much. Can I have a show of hands to accept the superintendent's reports? Thank you. At this point in the meeting, we'll go to committee reports. Who would like to go first on this side? Ms. Collins.
The following are the notes from the October 24th, 2019 meeting of the Ad Hoc Culture Committee. The committee met with Dr. Paula Rodriguez-Rust following her training on promoting equitable school environments, a cultural competence training to the district administrators, which included Dr. McGarry, our vice principals, HIB coordinators, school counselors, HIB specialists, and our new school-based therapist. The district hired Dr. Rust because of her expertise in cultural diversity and competence training, as well as her expertise in anti-bullying practices for schools. She indicated that the meeting went very well and everyone seemed engaged. The purpose of the training was to create a framework for the district to address bias, diversity awareness, and cultural competence to help create a school that is safe, welcoming, and conducive to learning for all students, while also helping to prevent HIB, discrimination, and bullying. Her presentation included many topics, such as the importance of having curriculum that demonstrates an intention and sensitivity to cultural differences. She explained that it is only human to be biased, as the first face a child sees is that of his or her parents, and that is how the child learns what it means to be a person. It is not intentional, it is how the mind develops, and biases are often subconscious. Dr. McGarry talked about changing demographics in the Holmdel School District. In regards to anti-bullying and anti-bias programs, Mrs. Amorati expressed concern that we seem to be implementing good programs in earlier grades, but she had concerns in regards to the high school and SATs. In regards to strategies to combat bullying, Dr. Russ talked about the importance of keeping HIB compliance separate from best anti-bullying practices. Dr. Russ talked about the pervasive confusion caused by the HIB anti-bullying laws, which is contained in the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. Contrary to what is believed, the HIB law is not about bullying per se. It is a law about bias-based behavior that is designed to address and prevent hostile educational environments, which is a form of discrimination. It is an anti-discrimination law that has been applied to the school environment, just as an anti-discrimination laws have been applied to the work environment, for example. It is meant to address interference with a student's rights in school when a student's behavior toward a fellow student is motivated by race, color, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, and disability. The law, however, goes further than the New Jersey law against discrimination by also including behavior motivated by other distinguishing characteristics, such as, for example, weight or appearance. In order to comply with HIB law when a hostile environment or a child's rights are affected, we need to know the statutory definition of HIB. The HIB definition triggers ABR procedures and should not be used to determine whether or not bullying has occurred, nor corrective responses to a bullying situation. Preventing classical bullying is a different animal and requires evidence-based practices and the understanding of the classical definition of bullying, which is about an intent to harm. There is no intent to harm requirement in the ABR. It's also about victimization, power imbalance, one-sidedness, and one-sidedness. And there are behaviors, just so you know, that are both HIB and classical bullying. There are some behaviors that are just HIB and some that are just classical bullying. While there is some usefulness to social skills training for children that are bullied, or anyone for that matter, it is wrong to put the onus on the bully child to get social skills training, because it's like telling the child that they got bullied because they did something wrong. The best thing for a bully child is to get them involved in other social activities. Unfortunately, the children who lack peer support also tend to lack faculty support, which is natural. These children are harder to reach. They may be anxious, shy, or they don't connect well. Surveys are recommended to help understand the culture of a particular school because they are the best way to hear from students. It can help us spot specific areas that need to be addressed, and the best time to do surveys is in the spring, before testing, like in March or April. Dr. Russ discussed the importance of the relationships between students and teachers, that students feel that they are supported, and that adults act as role models for appropriate behavior. Dr. McGarry indicated that teachers in Holmdel are not often as present in the less structured spaces of the school, such as the cafeteria or hallways, where much of inappropriate behavior occurs. It is the lunch monitors or aides or whatever adult is present at the time that needs to be involved, and it isn't too much to ask them because they would probably appreciate being involved anyway. The aides have been a special part of social emotional learning training, and it would make sense for them to be involved in cultural competence and bullying prevention as well. As to implementing anti-bullying programs that focus on bystanders, the problem is that while there may be some benefits to bystander training, we don't want to make the students responsible for preventing bullying. Finally, while you can't attempt to change a child's beliefs or behaviors at home that may be biased, it is important that children know what behavior is expected at school. There are many places where kids are expected to adapt their behavior, and they can do it at school. The next meeting date of the ad hoc Culture Committee is to be determined.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none.
I just wanted
You have a comment.
thank Mrs. Collins for the connection with Dr. Rust and for helping facilitate